Okay. I put my general ideas together, so I'm going to go through them. To start with metaphysics, I believe there are three types of meaning, which are the definition, value, and purpose, and I believe that life has all three of those. So when people say life is meaningless, I believe in three senses that to be untrue. And either you don't know if you die, or if you do, then there is an afterlife. I also believe that the past is permanent. Existence is true. I believe that to be the most true statement. Everything is physical. Everything to you is your experience, and you're limited to your experience. Everything is real in some sense, and rules are not real in some sense. What exists beyond experience is inexperienced. Sense is not necessary for truth. Truth or lack thereof is unknowable for a fact except for the truth of existence. Free will does not happen. Everything that makes choices tries to make the best choice. I am agnostic. In economy, I believe that profit is theft from customers. I believe that useless jobs are an inefficient type of welfare. Capitalism promotes what is most profitable, not what is healthy or efficient. There is enough to go around. The economy is about as good as it's ever been. People just don't know how it works, have higher expectations than they used to, and are bad with money. Democrats historically are much better with the economy than Republicans. For example, during the Great Depression, we have FDR versus Coolidge. Coolidge did not run the economy well, or I should say he was passive, and then he didn't prevent the Great Depression. Hoover did about the same thing during the Great Depression, and then FDR really fixed things by getting involved. Then we have Bill Clinton. He was the first president since, I think it was the 1970s or so, to balance the budget. We have George W. Bush versus Obama. There was a, Great Recession at the end of George W. Bush's presidency, then Obama fixed things. And then we have Trump versus Biden. Trump overheated the economy and spent with a deficit. He lowered taxes and increased spending. Didn't work well. Biden passed the Inflation Reduction Act. Inflation has been reducing greatly, and yet his approval ratings, especially on the economy, are still low. I believe that more important than economic system is the execution. Countries ranging from Yugoslavia to America have had varying but significant success, with the USSR being a powerhouse, while the failures include America during the Great Depression and the long list of communist regimes practicing mass murder, mass starvation, and poverty. And different systems have success in different ways that target different people. America is a really rich country, the richest really, but it doesn't have the same wealth distribution that a lot of European countries have, for example. In ethics and politics, I believe people don't live in a vacuum, and your choices affect others, and you should make the best choices possible. Suffering can be worse than death, and that is why suicide exists. More important than keeping on is to be the best you can. Health and happiness for yourself and others. So long as life has profound suffering, it would be better for life to not exist, but any extermination of life that involves suffering is wrong, whether it is brutal murder, taking resources away from another, ways of reducing suffering, or having others be aware of their upcoming elimination. Producing life is also wrong, but so long as there is no way to unexpectedly, instantaneously end all of life all at once, it is lesser evil than ending life by not reproducing. Still, adoption should be prioritized over reproduction. Freedom is not inherently best. Humanity, as it currently exists, is worse free than with good control, and bad control can be worse than no control. And surveillance and restrictions on dangerous behavior should increase. For example, speed limiters on cars and mandatory fact checks in media. Democracy should be limited or replaced with a technocracy, meritocracy, or newocracy. All else equal, you could put your own survival over others. If you can survive or thrive, you should bring every deserving person up to your level. Absolutely undeserving people are at least those who are profoundly wrong and beyond repair. The criminal punishments for illicit drug use should not be life-ruining, but recreational drugs can be more dangerous than is popular to say right now. There should be a better drug awareness campaign, and a system of licensing for the use of psychedelic drugs might be beneficial. Minimizing suffering should be prioritized over equal amounts of maximizing happiness. Happiness should be prioritized if it is significantly greater than suffering. It will end or prevent suffering. Suffering has already ended and will not return, or if suffering cannot be ended. It is better to maximize happiness than do nothing. Happiness as a byproduct is more acceptable than suffering as a byproduct. Suffering and happiness should be prioritized over health and life, but health and life are necessary for the former. Ethics can be complicated, and sometimes you just have to trust your intuition. If you're wrong enough, then others should stop you. Everything voluntary can be judged morally. Morality is based on intent. Outcome is the priority. Donate unnecessary time and money to charity. Be good to yourself and others. If loneliness is too much, a program... I wrote this so stupidly. A government program should exist if loneliness is a big problem to get others together. If you're staying home because you're sick, you can still try to enjoy it as much as possible. Killing animals for food is wrong, but killing them instantly after living in good conditions makes it less bad. I support universal health care, welfare, addressing climate change, right to abortion and vaccines. And I do not support Hamas, ownership of assault weapons, decontextualized or miscontextualized discrimination based on ability, age, class, race, nationality, sex, religion, or whatever else of that type. Now, in some sense, discrimination is okay, deciding like who's fit for what job, but at some point it's unnecessary, and I'm against that. The isms. People should believe based on values and evidence, and don't fall to your enemy's level. What matters is doing good, not the way you do good. Also, the extremes of both sides of the culture war are silly. There are bigger problems. Many people are tribal, egotistical, etc., and their political values are secondary to whatever reason they hold them, and will change them when convenient. And people generally seek entertainment and survival over truth. Self-defense is acceptable in defense of life and limb, less so in defense of property. And there are few cases in which the invasion of a country is justified, but to stop a genocide is one of them. It's not so much that in health people are better at dealing with some feelings, it's more so that they don't get the feelings to begin with. Panic, which is something I've experienced and I hear a lot of misinformation about, I believe, is boiling over, which is going beyond the point you're trying to avoid when you're nervous, and your priorities might change. Anything that is a priority, your will is uncompromising. Anything that isn't a priority won't stop you. You'll put yourself in the silliest predicaments to fulfill the priority. And the priority could be survival, or it could be not being embarrassed. And they're often at each other's ends. What I mean by that, they're often opposing each other. And when you're in the state, you have more problems starting before you could get rid of the last ones. And it's a nightmare that you can't wake up from. And you are so broken. And then it's not a problem anymore. And then you have to brush it off, and people will be upset that you had to go through that if you disrupted anything going on from anyone else. I also believe that mental illness is glorified to some extent by the mentally ill coping, and to some extent by the mentally healthy thinking it's desirable. People without mental illness try to get attention by pretending to be mentally ill, and it takes away resources from the mentally ill and diminishes the accuracy of the conversation around mental illness. People who witness a fake mentally ill believe the problems are easy to solve and grow resentful towards them, and apply the same to the real mentally ill. Gender dysphoria is a condition which current treatment for includes hormone replacement therapy and sex reassignment surgery. This is because the sufferer profoundly feels to be the opposite gender, and rather than less efficacious treatments like ignoring the problem or conversion therapy, they change their gender to the one they more align with. Whether the gender, which might already be of the opposite sex, or sex change is real is not the biggest concern. If more people were more accepting of transgenderism, the situation would improve a lot. Some life advice. This is far from exhaustive, but it's some stuff I've came up with recently. I believe we should let people have small failures, but not big ones. We should help others, and importantly, something that a lot of people don't believe and don't talk about is some people should get help when they need it, because it can hurt others to not get help. Work on the biggest picture, not necessarily more than you can do, but don't limit yourself. Don't be absolutely gullible for or against mainstream, including criticism. Be skeptical, learn, and fact check. Try to understand both sides and what it would take to change sides. Be kind, but that doesn't mean you can't be assertive. Sometimes it's better to think before you act. Some things are more important than ego. Some people's challenge are other people's crutch. Once people expect something from you, it might be easy for them, and it might be too easy. They might rely on it too much, and then something that's easy for you might be a challenge for them. People have different perspectives on things. Some things are easy for one person and difficult for another, and vice versa. You don't need to prioritize others who prioritize themselves over you. You can't please everybody, nor should you. Cheating, inheriting, etc. might get you ahead, but it won't give you good character unless you learn what not to do. Sometimes people worse off have to put in more effort to get less. People say the worse off have to figure it out for themselves and complain the worse off make things worse for the better off, despite being better able to tolerate, and it would improve the worse off, and the better off complain about the problems as if they are as bad as the worse off. The better off say the worse off should be happy they don't have it worse, and that it's the worse off fault. That's it. My grammar was all mixed up here. And there's a lot of things I didn't include, but I think this is a general overview of my current perspective on things. If you have your own opinion, please comment. I'd love to see what you have to say and respond.